Hey, welcome to Chicago High School Football Legends. My name is Bernard Muhammad. Hey, this is episode number 11. Tonight's guest is Flournoy. Most people know him as Plank, and when I first met him, we called him Baby Plank. Plank is one of those, I would say, mythical figures where most people know who he is. And they just heard something or seen them play or played against them, especially in the 80s, or they heard about how fearless he was on the football field, among other things. And so anyway, I was looking at an article dated November 22nd, 1981, and I just want to share this before I bring Plank onto the broadcast. And this article, I'm kind of read around a little bit. And one of the sentences in the article said the whole team contributed to every single one of them, including Andre Bullock, Randy Gibson, Keith Flournoy, Tony Allen, Barry Kimmons. And later in the article, it says, in round 2, Limblom stayed on the ground as Payne scored a 10-yard burst on the first down. The game ended on Tilden's second down when Barton fumbled and Keith Flournoy recovered on the 6th. That was the end of that game. And from there, legend was born because this team advanced to the city championship in 1981. And no further ado, I'd like to bring my best friend on, Keith Flournoy. Hey, what's up, team?
What's up, team? How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Yeah. Hey. So, hey, Andre Keller said, "What's up, big bro?"
What's up, Andre? Wearing that same helmet I had. That's funny.
Yeah. So Andre was actually one of our earlier guests, and he actually mentioned what just Plank just said about he wore a helmet, in I believe 1984, 83, and 84 season that Plank wore in 1981. And it happened to be his name was still on there, but he knew who Plank was, and he was honored to be able to wear that helmet. And that's
I don't know how he got to wear it. I was trying to break it. I tried my best to break it, but I guess it didn't work.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Let's start your story. I know I started with the article from publicly semifinals game, which was November. I said November. What article is November 22nd, 1981. Your journey to football crossed with like Sydney Muhammad, who was our very first guest. So I may go back to some of those things that we mentioned in that interview. But can you share with us, how did you first discover you had a love for football?
I actually first learned to play football when I was, I spent time in Inglewood as a child. My grandmother lived on 65th and Sangamon, and we had some guys at the end of the block that played for Simeon. So the guy at the end of the block played for Simeon. His name was Greg Lawson, and they used to call him Lucky Lawson because he made supposedly a really fantastic one-handed catch back in the 80s, which is something that didn't happen. And so he used to actually take the kids on that block, including his brother Gordon, and we play at the end of the vacant lot. So he actually taught us how to run routes, had the guys from Simeon come out there and play against us sometime. I was maybe 12 years old or so. And, that's where we got introduced to football and running routes and everything. So, Greg Lawson did a great thing as far as I was concerned.
Okay. So how did you end up on defense?
Well, actually that summer, when I was 12 years old, we ended up playing so much, and my friend Gordon had played for Ogden Park the year before. So he was talking about how we were going to go ahead and go out for Ogden Park's football team again. And I said, okay. So I went out there with him, and, Ogden Park, they gave me equipment, and I was out there. And my uncle used to play for Robeson. He was Robeson's wide receiver class of 80. I'm sorry, class of 79. So
Okay.
had a lot of publicity and everything. Mitchell Gray. So one day we were up at Ogden Park, and they got all of the guys from Simeon had showed up, and they were talking about their little brothers were out there playing. And my uncle came out there, and he brought a bunch of guys from Robeson as well. So we had this little drill that we were going through. I think what we call the Oklahoma drill now, where you lay
Okay.
on your back and you get up and you hit people. And my uncle, he basically scared the bejesus out of me, and he started talking. There's no way you're not gonna make this hit, because you ain't gonna embarrass me in front of my friends and everybody, and you my nephew. And he just had me really charged up. So as soon as we got in the Oklahoma drill, the gator got the ball to the other guy, and I think I speared him straight in his chest. And all the guys from Robeson and Simeon, they started saying, "Whoa!" They were cheering and everything. So I like that feeling from that day on. I didn't want to play offense. Defense seemed to be the better suited for me.
Okay. And did you play Park District at Ogden Park?
I did. So as a matter of fact, at that time I lived on 113th and Green. So
Mm-hmm.
it was an entirely different district. Palmer Park was probably the closest park district to us. But I spent so much time at my grandmother's house all summer, every other day during the week. So we ended up playing at Ogden Park. So I was part of Ogden Park football team, and the coach actually let me not have to come except for the summer, and then during the fall I just show up for games, and he let me play. So it was pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, we had another guest. I believe it might. Oh, our last guest, Rocky Harvey. Was
Okay.
he our last guest? No, Reverend Neal might have been the last guest. But Rocky Harvey, who was guest number probably 9, he actually played at Ogden Park.
Wow.
Yeah. And for those
Small.
who didn't see the Rocky Harvey interview, look it up on YouTube. Rocky Harvey from Dunbar, who rushed for over 7,000 yards in high school. So that was a very good interview there.
That's some ridiculous numbers, team. But
Right.
I remember watching him do it. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So anyway, let's go to this, and then we're gonna kind of dive into some of the high school stuff.
Okay.
So what is the origin of the plank? How did you get that name?
That actually didn't come until high school.
Okay.
So I actually played for Ogden Park, and we knew some of the guys that were our rivals playing for other Park District teams. As a matter of fact, we ended up playing against Avalon Park, who had quite a few guys that we ended up knowing and coming across. Avalon was where Barry Kimmons played, but at the time, a guy that played for Avalon was Mickey Pruitt. And he was we knew him from our families and everything. My uncle and his sister both went to the same school, and they were athletes and all of that. So me and Mickey Pruitt were kind of rivals even back in grammar school. So I knew who he was, and he came from an athletic family, and I want to try to beat him and what have you. Long story short, we ended up winning the championship my second year playing for Ogden Park. So that would have been my freshman year in high school. So
Okay.
let's go Ogden Park Vikings.
Right. For those who
That's the first time we played at Soldier Field, as a matter of fact.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what Rocky Harvey, one of the things he was alluding to, that game at Ogden, that championship game was played at Soldier Fields. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Because he had made a comment that he said he's a joke with guys when he was in I think college, that he had won more championships at Soldier Field than the Chicago Bears.
I'd say he's right. Absolutely.
Right. So as far as, okay, you get into high school. Let's bring this up now. Let me add this onto the screen. Okay.
Hey, that's a nice picture.
Yeah. Hey, matter of fact, I look like, I see you right there, number 35. I see Royce Jackson. Look like Ed Silky Smooth, a coach.
Silky smooth.
Yeah, I see Zam look like that might who is that of hold on. Matter of fact, that's me right there. Red time
That's
sitting on
you.
the bench.
That's you kneeling down. Yeah,
Yeah,
next
yeah,
to
sitting
Roy.
next to Royce. Then it looked like that's who's that? Mike Wallace over your left
That is
shoulder.
Mike Wallace. We
Mike
used to
and
call
Zam.
him Clinky. Yeah.
Okay, so what we have now, we have Plank played football at Leblon Technical High School. He played on the Farsoft team his sophomore year in 1979. He played varsity football 1980 and 1981. Played defensive back. He was on a couple of all city lists, all conference, and he was part of the 1981 Leblon team that went to the city championship. And I got you. You also played some college ball at Triton, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So hey, let's talk about your journey at Leblon. I mean, what did you try out your freshman year?
No, my freshman year I played for Ogden Park, so that's where I was committed. Hey, Mike, how's it going? Mike Lawson, cousin. He ended up going to Western with us, and cousin of Greg and Gordon Lawson. So it's a small world.
Isn't
I've
it so?
always thought, absolutely. So I'm sorry.
Okay,
What was the question?
oh yeah, so you said you played Ogden your freshman year, so
Correct.
you didn't play at Leblon as a freshman. So you hit that edge, so you went out for the team sophomore year. What happened?
It was not a good experience for me. So I had the opportunity to go back and play for Ogden again. We would have contended for the championship. As a matter of fact, we did. But I thought it was about time for me to start my high school career. I was all of 5'2". I think it was 100 pounds. I may have made 100 pounds by my sophomore year, and I went out, decided I was going to go out for the Frostoff team. I went out for Frostoff, and I'm out there every day. And the coach was Coach Padalino. He didn't give me equipment. He never let me get out there on the field, but I just refused to give up. So after about a month of me just showing up in practice all the time, he finally gave me some equipment and let me get out there on the team. So, I didn't. There was nothing wrong with him cutting me or telling me I wasn't good enough. But I figured I was gonna make him at least tell me. I wasn't just gonna quit. So
Right.
there you.
Hey, what's up, Russ Baker, man?
There you go.
Russ, one of former teammates. Hey, Russ. Hey, we got Barry Kimmons coming up in a few weeks. And hey, let Kyle Lavalier know I'm looking for him. Kyle Lavalier gonna have to come on here.
Yes,
all
sir.
Right. Hey, Plank. Okay, so I remember that was my freshman year then. So I tried out, and hey, you made it farther than me. I mean, first day I was sent home. Me and Zemi, and I think that's kind of when I formally met Zemi. We looking at each other like, man, what happened? How we didn't make the team?
Wow.
And start kind of talking from there. So sitting on the bench, I know that's hard. Especially, you had a very trying situation where, you sitting there for a while, not even been issued equipment.
Right.
Okay. So as you get through that year, how do you, what happens? Okay. The next year you go to varsity. What gave you the confidence that you could play varsity, when, with, being on the team, the Fossall team, and not really getting no time? What gave you the confidence to go out for varsity next year?
Well, I thought it was a natural progression. At the time in the 80s, football was big. You played for your school. Lindblom had such a huge following. Every game we went to, we would be supported by the student body, and everybody was really vocal. So I wanted a part of that experience. So I absolutely thought I'd be able to go out for varsity and, maybe make a couple plays or what have you. But as we talked about a little bit before with Sydney's program, I didn't have equipment, so I didn't have gym shoes or cleats or anything like that. So I ended up borrowing an old pair of Sydney's cleats and trying to play defensive back out there at Lindblom Park in the mud.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have the best coverage skills.
Okay.
Actually, I had decent coverage skills, but it didn't show because I'm flipping and can't keep up and everything else. So at that time, they, a lot of the guys that were on the team with me, they thought I was a good hitter. So they
Mm.
knew I wasn't afraid or whatever, but they didn't think I had coverage skills. Because at that time, I guess I didn't. I didn't have the equipment to do that.
Okay.
So
So
that's
that's
that's the story. That's
that's
the
tough.
genesis.
Yeah, that's tough. Playing from playing football without the proper equipment. I can remember coaching youth football, and there was players or kids who didn't have cleats or. I remember one kid one day. I'm looking at him in practice, and I kind of noticed his foot seemed to be balled up, right? Because he was kind of way he was running. I'm like, "What's wrong with your foot?" And so I'm looking at the way his shoes. That's how your foot balled, your toes balled up. And he was like, "What do you mean, coach?" I said, "Hold on, just stand flat." And when he stood flat, his toe came out the front of his cleats. And I
Wow.
was like, wow. So me and some of the coaches chipped in and bought some of the guys who just could not afford it cleats. And I remember one of the players, ironically, when I played flag football, I had bought cleats, and I gave one of them my cleats from flag football.
Wow.
But that's tough. So you're going through that year, and I think we had met that year. I think we might have met your sophomore
We
year
met
somewhere.
your freshman year, and we were in the
Yeah.
same chemistry class.
Mm-hmm. So you're on that team. Did you get any time that year? Your
I
junior year?
got 0 time my junior year. So, one of the things that kind of bothered me is I'm out there trying to play or what have you, and I was one of the few guys on that team that didn't let her. And then, last week, a couple weeks ago, we had an interview with Reverend Mike Neal, and he talked about his time in that team as well. But he at least let her. So I was
Mm-hmm.
out there every day trying to give a good effort. And for whatever reason, the coach didn't think I was one of the players that he wanted to build on for the next year, and that really hurt my feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
more than that, after it hurt my feelings, I had to put on my big boy pants, and I said, "Okay, what I'm gonna do this next year is I'm gonna hit everything that moves for the entire year." I don't care if it's coaches. I don't care if it's fans. I'm hitting mascots. So whatever happens, they're gonna know that I was out here and I was gonna hit somebody in the mouth. That was
Okay.
that was kind of how I looked at the entire year.
Okay. So hey, so that was the birth of, at that time we was calling you Baby Plank. So that was the birth of Baby Plank.
Yeah, we started this group. In Lindblom, we were almost like a mini college at Lindblom. So we had clubs in Lindblom. We had so many different clubs. So the family was a club at that time, and we looked up to them from my freshman year. They had some really important guys that actually leaded us. Listen to me, led us, and they were part of the football team. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about guys like E.J. Bassetti, um, Mark Miller, those guys, Carl Carter. And we always looked up to these guys. And from that, the family, we ended up deciding we were going to start our own little group because, everybody had a group at Lindblom. So we started a group called the Crunch Bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Crunch Bunch, we took a couple things away from schools like Julian. Julian had a rich history. And the thing that I remembered about Julian then and still now is all of these guys seem legendary because you heard their names before you even met them.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like they had these nicknames, Physique and Crazy Horse and Super Toe. So when we started the Crunch Bunch, I was like, we're going to all get nicknames too. So I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to think of, a nickname that would sound like I was tough and mean and crazy. So I had a little baby face and I was probably weighing about 135 pounds. So I decided I was gonna call myself Baby Plank.
Okay.
And when other people heard it for the first time, it kind of stuck. And I guess I got some pub from that.
Right. So I remember when you named yourself Baby Plank, and I can remember thinking, you got some big shoes to fill now, right? And and I can remember your junior year, which is my sophomore year, that you had. I know you was disgruntled. I would see you. I believe we was in the chemistry class or biology class together. And I remember one day during that season, GQ had a song out, Sitting in the Park. And I remember one day you was just like sitting on a bench, waiting for time. And I was like, man, this guy crazy.
I was sitting on the pine waiting for time.
Sitting on the pine, waiting on time, right? Hey,
yeah,
what's up,
I wasn't too happy about that.
Hey, what's up, Beast? I see Beast out there.
Sands, good to see you.
See, you love you up to that name. Yep, you did. He said you leveled up to that name. And so anyway, Plank, it seemed like at that moment, it was like no turning back for you. You know, it was like, we in the producers thing, got the Crunch Bunch, you Baby Plank, people know you on Lumblon, the popularity is soaring, and now you coming into double session, right? So so what happened that year during trials that changed the trajectory from the previous years?
So, great question. My uncle, Mitchell Gray, that played at Robeson or what have you. My uncle, the week before double session started, he brought me a pair of cleats. I don't know how he got the money to get them. My uncle, he's only 3 years older than I am, so it had to be a bit of a hardship for him. I don't know where he got it, but he brought me a pair of cleats and said, "This is my gift to you, and I want you to go out there and do the best you can." And I was like, okay. At that point, I wanted to show everybody on the team that I could actually play, because I learned to play at Ogden Park, but again, I wasn't able to translate that in my years in Lindblom, because for whatever reason, I actually had a conversation with Coach Padalino and say, "Why do you always pick the big guys? Us small guys can play too." And he said, "Well, small guys get tired, big guys don't shrink." And I said, "Okay, well, so forward." So, from that, my uncle gave me the cleats, and he kind of looked at me like, it's your time to hold the family legacy. I said, okay. And that first day in double sessions, all of the guys that were seniors, we kind of made a decision. We are going to come, and whatever's going to happen, we're going to leave it out there on the field. So that first day of double sessions, we were out there hitting, and some of you other teammates were hitting people so ridiculous. It ended up being a competition thing. Like, wait a minute, I can make a hit better than that. I can make a hit harder than that. So we started. We really laid the wood that first 2 days of practice. And what happened, the first day of practice, it was like 110 guys went out for the football team. By that third day, it was down to 40 guys, and those were the guys that were left standing. And that was how we got our football team.
Okay. Hey, I want to send a shout out to Big Brother Swan. Back in high school, we referred to him as L Swan.
And still do.
Right. Swan was one of the founder members of the Crunch Bunch, along with you and some of the other brothers, and also our frat brother. What up, Swan? Okay. Hey, now Plank, I'm no being there, man, and I'm looking at y'all, man, and y'all killing it, man. I mean, between you, Barry, Sydney, Bullock,
Frazier.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other guys that was Eric Frazier, Zimmy, Emerson Bowie, y'all
Mitchell Duncan was my grammar school friend, and he was our quarterback. Mitchell ended up playing defensive back that year as well. And Mitchell was one of those guys that you see as a kid, even though we're in the same year in the same grade. I always looked up to him. He had this star quality with him that everywhere he went, people knew who he was and people followed him. And he was our quarterback. And I was, he was the kind of that guy I'd just look at and say, I know that guy and I'm glad he's my friend. So I wanted a little bit of that same limelight that he was actually taking. So actually, one of the things that the year before my senior year, I started writing down goals of what we wanted to accomplish, and I wanted to continue the legacy of Lynn Bloom defensive backs. So Lynn Bloom defensive back, we have a rich and storied legacy. My freshman year, there was E.J. Bassetti, who later on ended up becoming a friend of ours, even when we went to Western. Sophomore year, there was a gentleman by the name of Mario Austin. And Mario Austin was a quarterback DB. Every time he made a hit, you heard it in the beginning, in the top of the stands. Junior year, I played with Tim Johnson, who led the public league in interceptions. So we actually got to see somebody showing how to play and how to lead. My senior year, it was myself and Barry Kimmons. And between Barry and me, we kind of looked at each other and said, no matter what happens, we are going to start shutting people down. And this was before you really had the concept of a shutdown corner or what have you. Barry would hit people so hard. Other people would kind of cringe. And the only thing that happened is when he hit him, I was like, they're not going to think I'm the weakest hitter on this team. So I'm going to hit him even harder than he did. So that was a good, healthy competition between DBs.
Okay. So
Frank, and David Bird. So, yeah.
So I'm thinking about so I remember we coming into the first game. I'm trying to remember who was it. I think it was Taft. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we're in the locker room getting ready for the game. And I noticed you had a pregame ritual. And can you share what that pregame ritual was?
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up. My pregame ritual was that I was going to be angry. I wasn't going to speak to nobody. I wasn't going to smile at anybody on the team. I would work myself into this rage so that by the time we get out there on the field, I wanted to make the first contact so loud and so vicious that everybody in the stands would hear it. So and I didn't just do that pre-game. I actually did it the entire game day. I wouldn't speak to my friends. I was just being me, but it was something that kind of helped me focus. And I was really, looking at it from there's a whole lot of guys out here that don't think I can play, and I have to show people that I can. So that was kind of the impetus for that.
Man, that's awesome because I can remember when I first saw you do it, and I'm like, hey, what's up, playing? And you kind of just was just like in a zone. And so when I first time I saw it, I was like, man, playing nervous, right? That's what I thought. I thought you were just freaking out, right? I was like, man, he looked nervous. I was like, man, he'll be all right. He'll be all right as soon as he get that first hit in. And I said, he just a little nervous. And then when you went out there, man, I remember I was just proud of you, how you was laying people out, right? And it was like, here's the guy that had made the varsity. He had been on the varsity. But now finally your senior year, you go from a guy that didn't play 2 years to now in the starting lineup and laying that wood. And that makes me bring up this next slide. So this would have been our second game of the season that year. I want to say second or third game. We played Robeson. What was it?
This was our second game. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what the game is on the left. The left when you look at the screen where you see the two lines of guys in the trenches line up against each other. And so anyway, looking at that game, we lost that game. What was it, like 12-0?
It was 12-0.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we played Robeson pretty tight, and the score was 6-0 the entire game, leading into the fourth quarter. and we had them at like fourth and 4 or something like that from the goal line. And for whatever reason, they ended up their quarterback Pat Wilburn rolled out and he tucked the ball, and I'm on the goal line, and for whatever reason, I just froze, and he lowered his head and ran me over,
Mm-hmm.
and they ended up scoring the touchdown. That's how they got that 12-0. And I was just so dejected from there. I kind of told myself, even worse, that will never happen to me again. But Pat Wilburn did run me over in order to
Mm-hmm.
get that second touchdown. So the score should have been even closer than 12-0 from my view.
Okay, so playing in that game and that being the first defeat that season, I know it was a like quarter, like kind of like a preseason game. You had
Hmm.
mentioned uh, being over with your grandmother house and playing at Ogden Parks, which is the Inglewood community, and you
Hmm.
mentioned Mickey Pruitt. So, and then your uncle being at this time he had already graduated high school, so he wasn't playing for Robeson. I mean, what was that feeling now losing to guys that you kind of knew already? You knew Mickey Pruitt, and I'm sure it was some other guys that you knew on that Robeson team.
It absolutely was. On the next block over from my grandmother's house, this is where Daryl Fulgham lived. Daryl Fulgham was Robeson's captain, an all-stater, known as Fig to everybody else. So, we had our own, little block rivalries, our block team versus his block team. So these are guys that I knew coming up, and for the most part, they knew who I was. So I definitely didn't want to lose to them. And even more than that, I was kind of upset that they had taken their progression, and kind of everybody knew who they were and they were really good players. When I was somebody was something of an afterthought. So I wanted to, again, just leave it all out there on the field, do whatever it is that I could to make a good stand.
Okay. Hey, there's a comment from Claude Bot said if you wanted to one of our teammates, yeah, if you want to answer that question, if you could read it.
Do I remember the hit heard around the world by Barry Kimmons at Rodney Stadium versus Hubbard? Yes, as a matter of fact, I do. There was a play that Hubbard's running back, and he had a bit of publicity and everything. He had broke like maybe a 10-yard run, and he was about to. He tried to lower his head, and all of a sudden you saw, and we played it back in slow motion about 200 times. Barry Kimmons came up, and the guy had a good 50 pounds on Barry. Barry hit him and stopped him dead in his tracks. And so we're watching the film, and even as we're watching it, we're imagining, man, what did that hit have to sound like? So seeing Barry put the wood on that the guy like that, I mean, this was something that I saw every day in practice. I was like, oh my goodness, we got something that's going to be really fire, in a little bit. So at that point, I wanted to make sure that nobody thought I was the lesser hitter in out of our defensive backfield. And again, just carry on that Lindblom legacy and put the wood to some people. So that's what
Okay.
we started trying to do.
You know what? I wanted to ask you a question. Reverend Neal actually made a comment when he was on here about the size of the team, and I know you mentioned you were probably about 135. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, did when Limbalone arrived at games, where there was one stereotype was you was all brainiacs and and some people goofies, right? Like, hey, they all brainiacs and goofies and nerds. They can't play sports. But
Mm-hmm.
that all add insult to injury. Reverend Neal brought up that there literally was the other team was marking Limblom team before a game. I mean, what are some of the things you remember other teams saying or other schools saying at the beginning of the game while we in the pregame warm-ups?
Well, I didn't really remember a lot of teams trying to mock us, even though I'm sure it happened. But specifically, this was we were playing in the playoffs, and we were in the quarterfinal games. So whoever won that game, we were playing against Orr, was going to be able to go to Soldier Field. And Orr had some really good offensive players. They had a good team altogether. Um, and the issue was G.D. Cook, who was, he was in the family and he was a member of the Lindblom team in classes before. Terry Cook's older brother, he actually came back and kind of helped us out and gave us all kind of inspiration and things like that. But G.D. Cook came in the locker room and he told us, he was like, these guys out there, they talking about you guys are so small, you look like a frost off. And as soon as he said that, I'm already I'm angry and I'm gonna be overly focused. I said, you must be crazy. I totally went crazy. And I was like, okay. At that point, Barry Kimmons and Eric Frazier, who were our captains, kind of looked at us and said, you know what we're gonna do? We are small. We're gonna walk out. We're not running out of the locker room this time. We're gonna walk out. So we taking our helmets off and we're gonna walk slowly and give them a good opportunity to look at us and see exactly how small we are. And as soon as the first play came, Randy Gibson put a hit on they fullback that sounded through the entire stadium. So one of the things we were known for is the way we were hitting people. It was kind of funny. That was the game we were beating Orr, and the final score was 16-8. But we were really imposing our will on them defensively. And it got to the point where one of our players was hurt, and I'm standing there next to the referee, which, you didn't usually talk to referees then. And I'm looking at the referee, and I'm like, ref, timeout, timeout. And he said, what's going on? I said, we need a timeout. He said, why? I said, we only got 10 players. He said, that's all y'all need. So at that point, and that particular ref was actually a coach as well for Simeon. So I didn't even realize that he knew who we were or that he was really paying attention to the game. But he was clearly paying attention. And at that point, we started getting a lot of notoriety for having a good defense. We had a good offense as well, but defensively, you didn't really hear a lot of people giving defensive players publicity and things like that. So it was a nice little nuance to have.
Okay. Hey, so I see one of our former college friends who we ironically ended up playing that year, Dwayne Bearden. He said y'all beat the crap out of us when I played for Kenwood in 1981.
And hey, Dwayne was a tough guy too. So, but yeah, we had to put them things on you, man. But we boys, so it ain't no problem. It's not a problem.
yeah. That year, other than like the Robeson game and the playoff games, which is high, and then I believe it was the Bogan game. A lot of those games, those teams didn't have more than maybe one touchdown or two touchdowns, but it looked like that team that you were on, I mean, like 30 points was the minimum, right? 30 to 10 or 40 to 6 or 42 or 48.
Well, one of the things that I was proud of for my senior year, at the beginning of the year, everybody got together and they kind of talked about what the direction of the team was going to be. I think actually my junior year, the team was probably more talented than we were. At least that's, these were my big brothers and that's how I looked at it. But one of the problems that we had with that squad is if the other team scored first, we automatically lost that game. So every time the other team scored first, that was a loss for us. So my senior year, we kind of changed that entire mentality. And I remember Orr ended up scoring off, they recovered a fumble at like the 2-yard line and they ran it in as like the second or third play of the game. And all of us kind of looked at each other like, that don't matter. We just going to beat them down. So we wasn't worried about the score. We weren't worried about any of that stuff. We just focused on our passion, and we actually put a lot of hits on people. One of the things that happened during my senior year was Coach Meddy, about the third game or so, he came to us and he was like, Barry, Flournoy, you guys, I don't want you guys hitting anybody else in practice anymore. There's too many guys that are getting hurt from the second and third hit. And when he said that, I kind of looked at him like, well, how are we supposed to get ready to hit people too? So ultimately, it made me really hungry for being able to make a hit in the game because we hadn't practiced, we hadn't tackled nobody all week in practice.
Okay. Hey, so you mentioned Coach Maddie. Who were your coaches at Limblom on the varsity?
Coach Medi, and it started out being Coach Patalino. For whatever reason, he had a good role in building up the producers and off-season programs and things of that nature. But for whatever reason, Coach Patalino had took some time off after we had lost that second game to Robeson, and we were coached by a guy by the name of Coach Lilly. James Lilly. And James Lilly helped us. You know, he was a guy that kind of founded the Crunch Bunch and kind of talked to us about his experience in high school at Lynn Bloom 10 years before. So he was a coach my junior year, but senior year was basically just Coach Medi and Coach Torian started coming and trying to help out as well. So those were the two guys that kind of led us into that senior season.
Okay, so I see this Chicago Sun-Times article that I read from earlier. The headline said Limblom rides defense. So this was getting ready for that matchup and in that game that you referred to, as far as playing Tilden, man. And I was so happy that you guys were blowing people out, because for a lot of us who were juniors, and this meant playing time for us, right? Because one way for a program to develop, and I think at that time some of the public league schools didn't understand this, is your younger players have got to have experience before their senior year, you know, and to see somebody like you that went from not playing to making all city, right? That's a tremendous feat. Kind of remind me of one of our other guests, Johnny Cole Muhammad, how he said when he tried out for the Fossall, he didn't make it as well.
What sense did that make? There was a whole lot of players that they kept from playing. Bruce Buick, he went out his junior year as well, and for whatever reason, he didn't make it. So we had guys that actually had talent and had heart, but for whatever reason, the coaches didn't actually select us. The funny thing about Tilden, we played Tilden in a scrimmage the summer of my senior year. We actually went all the way over to their park and we played them, and they had a wide receiver by the name of David Weathers. And David Weathers, I think he must have caught 4 or 5 touchdowns against us during that scrimmage. And for the most part, he made all of those touchdowns on the other side. We were still struggling to get a little bit, trying to figure out who was going to play which positions or whatever. So Barry was playing safety in the middle, and I was playing DB, which is basically corner on the outside. We didn't know who was going to be that other corner, and that's where ultimately Mitch Duncan basically stepped up and said, hey, I'm going to go ahead and play DB, and he started shutting down people as well. But we played Tilden that first time, and I looked at David Weathers after that game, and I said, I'm going to see you again, because I remember this guy was making one-handed catches, diving for the ball, all of that stuff, and we ended up playing against him, and I had to guard him at Soldier Field in that semifinal game. And I put a pretty good hit on him. I think, everybody in the Tilden side kind of knew we were serious after I hit him like that. So,
okay. So let's backtrack a little bit in the playoffs. So,
sure.
Matter of fact, okay, let me go a step back a little further. So, sure. In the conference, Limblom only lose one game, was to Bogan. If we had won that game, we would have advanced to the state. So we lose the game to Bogan, and I know we had a controversial play with as far as this Sydney scored a touchdown, it kind of changed the momentum of this game. But now you go through the season with one conference loss to to Bogan, and one preseason loss to Robeson, and I believe faced King in that first round. Okay, for the second time. What do you remember about that King game?
The first game or the second game?
The second game, the playoff run.
Oh man, I'll tell you that game was really amazing. That was an amazing game because King they brought it. As a matter of fact, there was a couple guys I had played at Ogden Park that played for King. So these were again guys that you knew, and it's like you playing against your brother. You don't want to give up a an inch to him. So we were hitting, they were hitting, everything was coming. But King ended up, I think they kept getting the ball for whatever reason within our 10-yard line. So
Mm.
they either we kept fumbling or they kept driving down, and we made four consecutive goal line stands
Mm.
against King High School by consecutive 4-yard goal line stands. That's when they were within that 10 yards. We stopped them from 4 plays. We couldn't stop them running up and down the fields, but that last 10 yards, for whatever reason, they weren't able to get it. So we ended up winning that game. The last play, I actually got a interception in the end zone.
Mm.
So we were able to put a seal that and everything. So I was pretty excited about that game.
Okay. Yeah, I just remember that game being tough, and I remember that goal line stand. I think one of the things I do remember in that game too was when we got to practice after that victory. Sydney was complaining about his toe, and King did a good job stopping him. He pretty much was running all over people after that loss to Robeson. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sydney had a real great season that year. Great offensive line being protected by Beast, who was actually commenting on the broadcast, watching live. Andre Bullock, who was one of the guards. Beast was a guard. I mentioned Eric Frazier, awesome guard. A couple other guys, they may be out there watching. Jeff Patton,
Rob
Sugar
McCarty,
Bear, Rob McCartney.
Sugar
We
Bear, Joey
yeah.
Garrett. Yes,
As a matter of fact, I want to give shouts out to probably one of the smallest linemen on that line. Who he was the early version of zone blocking. Martin Simmons. We called him Bum.
Martin Simmons. We used to call him Bum. Hey, Bum brought the wood, though. I tell you.
Yeah, Bum probably about what 5'8", maybe 155 pounds. Then
Yep. Yeah,
Bum
he
could
wasn't
play
taking
his
any
butt off.
steps back. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. So hey, so you get to the Tilden game, and hold on, Russ just brought up a few people name. I know you mentioned the name. What I didn't
Sir.
realize then, and I think I may be right. Dempsey Norman had now about this time had became one of the stars on that team, and I believe Dempsey was a sophomore.
It was. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So
they had a pretty stacked squad. Hey, tell you what, Russell, Jamie Barton was their quarterback, but uh, their second string quarterback was so much better than him. It was ridiculous. His name was Gentry Gale, and that was Gordon Lawson's cousin. We kind of played together in the Park District as well. So it's funny how we ended up coming across each other all the time. I played at Triton with Gentry Gale. That guy
okay.
they used to call him X Man because he would throw the ball so hard you leave a little X in your chest from where the football made his indentation. So
Okay. So that game end up going to double overtime. And if you didn't see the interview with Sidney Payne Muhammad, look it up on YouTube on the Bears Banner talk show broadcast. Also hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed to the show. And also you'll pick up this show, which is one of the shows that are on the platform called Chicago High School Football Legends. So in that game, I remember Sidney ended up being he received a player of the week award. But I do remember some play happened with you in it near the end of the game. What happened?
so actually that game I actually got an interception in the fourth quarter to get us the ball back. And the last play of the game, they were actually the quarterback Jamie Barton was running with the ball and running out trying to score. I think he was about the 2-yard line. And when he got to the 2-yard line, you heard this crashing, thunderous hit. by Randy Gibson and Barry Kimmons. And all of a sudden, I see the ball pop up, and I'm like, wow. And then it seemed like it was slow motion. I'm like, is that the ball? I can't believe this guy dropped the ball. So I grabbed it out of the air and I started running. And I called myself about to run it back, 99 yards or whatever. And then I noticed a couple of guys on the team were trying to stop me. And they were like, run out of bounds, because they wanted the game to be over. And I was like, this is my chance to run for 100 yards in Soldier Field. But I would have hit and stepped out of bounds. And we ended up winning the game. So that was a vital play in the game. So for whatever reason, it seemed like that whole year, I made a lot of plays at the end of games. And, a lot of times it's because there's smaller windows or, people are trying to throw against you or whatever. Barry Kimmons and I got to tell you, we played that zone defense better than anybody I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember people, they didn't score touchdowns against us, but I don't even remember them catching passes against us. And a lot of times we would be faking and just outsmarting people. We'd be looking at each other and I'd say, Barry, blah, 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 blah. And we're not communicating anything. We just acting like we're doing something, and we would just intimidate people. So we want to keep on doing that and using it.
Okay. So that game in with a fumble and you recovered the ball. That was a close game, overtime, I think double overtime game. So now, man, this is what that fairy tale story, man, the Cinderella man, or the Cinderella team, man, it comes crashing down. Robeson Rumps to City Crown. What do you remember about that week or just that game? What happened? The team is dominating all through the year. Played Robeson 12-0, close game early in the season. They really didn't get the other second score until near the end of the game. What happened in this game?
Well, you know what? I think that's a testimonial about why every part of the game is important. So offense is important, defense is important, and special teams is important. That, not to make excuses, I'm just explaining, not trying to excuse it or whatever. We had lost our punter. And you would think that's not a big deal, but, the punter controlled field position and made sure he kept us out of harm's way and gave the other team a further field to play with. So as we lost our punter, our backup punter was somebody that kind of just raised his hand and said, hey, I can punt. And the coach said, okay, that's your job. And for whatever reason, he had some delusions that he was going to, run for touchdowns or whatever. So he got the first punt and he kind of caught it. And I guess he thought they were too close or whatever.
Someone's at the front door.
And he ended up getting tackled. And I think we were like at our 8-yard line.
Okay.
So Robeson had 8 yards to go. They ran it in from the 8-yard, and they got the extra point. We're down 8-0. Our response was, okay, they got that or whatever. Next time we got on offense, same thing. They stopped us. We tried to punt. This time they blocked the punt. So they scored. They score again. We're down 16-0. Then they got the ball again. Again, we had another problem with the punt. Didn't kick it. We're down 24-0. By the time it was the halftime, we were down 32-0. But here's the thing that I remembered that really hurt my feelings the most. They had 32 points and 50 yards of total offense. So what that means is they always had an extremely short field to play with, and they put us to it. So at the end of the day, everybody looks at the score and they say, man, they killed y'all. And hats off to them. These guys are true champions. Robeson was the first team to actually make it to the state final. So I got nothing but hats off to them. But there's no way you're gonna ever tell me that make me believe that they were that much better than us. They beat us at one. Hats off to the champion in all humility. And so I had to go back to my my old block and hear them talk about how they beat us all the doggone time, and I'm still mad about it today. I need some therapy.
Yeah. Hey, 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 Plank. I will give credit to the alumni of Limblom and a lot of those alumni football players who had graduated previous years. I remember them being at the game and cheering us on, right? Even though we had lost the game, right? They was there. So, that was a great moment as well, even though we had fell in the hands defeat. And I also remember, just like you, I lived in the Inglewood community, and I can remember telling my family members, because Touche and some of them who lived on a block over, they were knocking on my door, right? And they, those who don't know Touche real name is Jimmy Spraggins. He was one of the star backs, and they knocking on my door, and I'm telling my family, tell them I'm not here. And some of the people like, hey, man, we beat y'all, we spoke y'all. And I'm like, I don't want to see them. I don't want to talk.
Yeah, that was a hard pill to swallow. You're right.
So hey, let's bring something else up. Let's move to. Oh, so
You're right, Russ.
Hey, one of the things we found out is you took your aggression and used it in martial arts. I mean, what's happening in this picture? Can you give us a little brief background of what you see here?
Yeah, actually, after college, I started my own martial arts program. I actually started taking martial arts after we left Western because I was way too much of a hothead. I have an unjustifiable amount of confidence. I guess I always have that. If there was 10 guys standing on the other side of the room, and me and you, I say we can take them. And no one would ever say, we can't whoop no 10 guys, but I thought that I could. So I wanted to make sure that I went to a martial arts school or whatever to get some kind of formal skills. And when I did that, one of the things it did was humble me. My first little match out there was against a 14-year-old guy by the name of DeMille O'Connor, and he kicked me in the face 3 times as soon as they said go. So I was like, I'm so glad I didn't run into this guy. All of them fighting and ruckus I was starting all the time. So it humbled me, and it let me know that I probably need to focus on some other things. So I was glad I was able to start that martial arts class. Rest in peace to my first black belt student that's on that picture with me by the name of Stephen Bramlett. He's the brother of Derek Bramlett, one of my fraternity brothers, and he just passed away last week.
Yep.
Absolutely. I can actually see my students have started schools as well. So I'm glad we continue the legacy. I was able to compete pretty well in martial arts in Illinois. I won a couple of state championships and things of that nature. So, I'm fairly well known in karate. It's kind of funny. People either know me as Eric, who my family calls me, it has nothing to do with my name, or Baby Plank, because that's what people from Limblom called me, or Plank, that's people from college, or Sensei. So I can be walking down the street, and based on what somebody calls me, I know what my association is. So
okay. So as far as this picture, I see the one picture where it looked like you're doing a flying kick. I mean, I don't know what the technical name. Then there's a picture, I think you mentioned one of your students, and you started a martial arts school, and it was called Final Conflict Karate. Is that okay? And I want to mention one thing. I know I mentioned earlier that Plank played football for Triton College. Eventually he transferred to Western, so that's why he started talking about Western, to make the connection to Western Illinois. So anyway, what's the history behind the gentleman that has the Final Conflict Karate School that was one of your former students?
Yeah, absolutely. So his name is Cal Miles. As a matter of fact, he's moved out to LA. He's doing very well for himself. He's has a couple movies that he's actually created. One called Yazuki Descendants. It's on Amazon right now. He's done very well for himself, and he was my student. He's the little guy on the in the front, the little light skinned guy with the really big ears with the white belt on.
Okay.
That's him years ago, and he's now 6'5" and 270 pounds or so, and he teaches combat karate, film combat karate. So a lot of the choreography and things like that you see out there in movies, that's attributed to him, and people like him. So he's continued the legacy, and I'm glad that he took up that mantle. So I'm very proud of him.
Hey man, that's amazing, Plank. Amazing story, amazing accomplishments, and that's a legacy when somebody else is taking up the mantle of something that you started, and they taking it, and now he's taking it to another level of teaching. Your form of karate called Final Conflict Karate, and he's taking it to movies. Now we may not ever see that down in the the little section like Final Conflict Karate in the movie screen, but we all know you that this is one of your students, and I'm proud of you. And I can remember back in the I want to say early 90s, there was I want to say it was Channel 9. They run this story and they're talking about it was I think you had a martial arts school at this time right off 70 or something, and
South Shore Drive, yeah.
South Shore Drive. And anyway, they did a story. I can't remember what station it was, but they was talking about your school and your work with young people in martial arts. Do you remember that day when they came in to do that story?
I do. Channel 2 News did one, and there was a show on Channel 9 as well. They kind of did a follow-up interview, and they kind of brought everybody to my school and wanted to know, how I started it, and they tried to paint a picture that, I was a rough and tumble guy from Inglewood. I was never a thug or anything like that, or at least I don't think I was. So I thought it was important for them to give us that kind of notoriety, and I was glad and very proud of my students. At that point, it wasn't about money or anything like that. It was about legacy. And some of these young men and women have really, really done well for themselves. I'm so proud of them. And for the most part, I'm still in their lives at some point. So
Okay.
I think that's what's more important.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, we are mentors when we play those roles, right? Being a sensei, myself being a coach youth football for a while, you impact those young men's lives, and for some of them, you're the only father figure in their life, other than maybe an uncle, or sometimes even in the schools, they may not see black male teachers other than maybe as a gym teacher or something to that degree. I mean, not saying anything against gym teachers, but they just you don't have a lot of black male teachers. And right. I can remember I had one in grammar school, and I didn't have any black male teachers until I got to Limblom. And, but anyway, can we got one other things, and we just talk about what you're doing now. Man, Plank, there we go. What's going on with this? I just saw this.
Hey!
What happened here?
That was a conference that I did for work. So professionally, I'm a solutions architect. So I'm the technical guy that helps with technical sales. Basically talks about how our software helps improve businesses and that kind of thing. So I got an opportunity to speak in Phoenix, Arizona this week, and this was the first time they had actually had me traveling, and I saw it out there on LinkedIn. So I've had a good week, I'll tell you that. Okay. How about that?
Okay. Man, that's awesome. See, I mean, he playing. I mean, I know sometimes, and I'm gonna kind of make this kind of personal. I know sometimes people might joke about men of Omega Psi Phi, and us, having a good time in college. But I will say, hey, we took care of the business, and as you hear a story, and not that other organizations don't, but I know a lot of people might have saw Plank as the tough guy, on the football field, the tough member of Omega Psi Phi on campus. Then they saw you as the martial artist, but they didn't realize that you was the businessman as well.
Well, it's good to be able to show many faces, right?
Yeah. And that all means something in the whole. It ain't just personal gain. Like I said, we never really ever absolutely represent ourselves. We always represent a group of people, regardless if we want to run away from that. It's somebody who you represent. You represent your family, right? You represent your parents. You represent your university. In your case, you come from a lineage of martial artists. You part of a martial art family, so you represent them as well. What you got, Plank?
Well, you know what? I hope I don't start getting all choked up or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I've told you guys this over the years that I had the good fortune to have a good set of friends at Lindblom that I met that have kind of come with me throughout all my trials and turmoils through life. Yourself, Emerson Bowie's, Emerson Bowie, we call him Zimmy, Sidney Payne. You guys actually are the only brothers that I've ever had, the only brothers that I ever will have. And we've been friends for 40 some years. The interesting thing about all of them fights and all this other stuff I would get into, it wouldn't be because people were messing with me. I would get upset because I thought somebody was trying to disrespect my friends. And, I feel extremely protective of you, and I'm protective of your families. And I know that you all feel the same way for me and my 6 beautiful children. Yes, I have 6 children and I feed them all. So I'm just glad to be able to have had the experience of having people like you and my other friends in my life, Beast. And the things that y'all have done for me, I can never pay you back. So I want to, at the very least, be somebody that represents you well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, bro. I mean, friendship is so valuable. And like, I mentioned earlier, my best friends. I mean, I got about 2 or 3, man. That's accomplishment to be able to say, right? Because some people don't have friendships, right?
Yes,
or friendships they can rely on. And I see you got a comment for David Bird, who was one of our guests and also a fraternity brother. And he was one of the young football players who was waiting in the wing to come and try to live up to what he just
yes, sir. He brought it.
And David Bird, like if you didn't see the interview, please look it up on Chicago High School Football Legends on David Bird. Not only do like an interview we discussed, he wasn't just a football player, because if you looked at him later on in life, this man ended up leading Illinois State Troopers in his area, and a stand-up man. And you'll see videos out in this time of year where he does this thing called Pay It Forward, where he's meeting families and giving them money at the checkout counter at Walmart and I believe Target, man. So, and he was also a member of the Crunch Bunch and also a member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Hey, did you have any other things you wanted to share, Plank, before we close out tonight?
No, I just wanted, again, before I get all choked up and everything, I just really want to let people know how important it is to have good friends, to choose friends well, to have friends and they can pick you up in different times of your life. So Omega Psi Phi, our motto is friendship is essential to the soul. It absolutely is. And I love my friends. I love my brothers, and I'm going to be there for them till the day I die. I'm glad I have friends like you, and I'm glad I have friends like Beast and Zimmy. It sounds like I get mushy, but so what? I really love you, man. When you decided that you wanted to do this podcast called Bears Banner, I remember we had a conversation about it, and I said, if you're gonna do it, I won't leave you out there by yourself. So, so that's why I'm part of that as well. If you did, anything that you do, I'm always gonna support. I love y'all. And I want everybody to know that, bro.
Yeah, appreciate that. Love you too, brother. And also, I know, like he just mentioned, Bears Banner, and Plank is one of my co-hosts. and I'm trying to get Jay Beasley on here. Jay Beasley, the clock is ticking on you, brother. You got to come on here.
Wide receiver on here. Come on, man. Hey, hats out to Spot Beta Sigma. We want them to, we want people to know we love you if you in the Divine Iron. Mario Austin, the guy I talked about before, member of Kappa Alpha Psi, he made me aware of what that fraternity was like. So we got a history of nothing but leaders that have fought, that have actually shown us good things that we want to emulate in our lives. So
okay,
didn't mean to cut off. So there you go.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I'm trying to line up a group of people, and I haven't forgot about you, Dino Ivory. We coming for you, Dino. We want you to come on this show, tell your story. I'm gonna have to bring Vazik back on the show. I know he did an interview, but it wasn't really for this show. Bring Vazik back on this show. We gotta bring man, there's so many people that are working on trying to bring Mickey Pruitt on. I'm trying to bring Walter Brandon on, who played for Julian. Matter of fact, I'm gonna have to reach out to there's a couple more people that people been running by me. And, it's a matter of trying to get to everybody to get them on here, because I don't want it just to be Lumblone as well, because there was a bunch of legends out there. And then, like I said, if you want to get on this show, just either DM me or just email me at bearsbanner1@gmail.com. Or if you know other people that like to be on, and it's not just public schools. As long as it was in Chicago, we want you on this show. If you play for Mount Carmel, Brother Rice, St. Rita's, come tell your story. All right. So until next time, peace.